quite a pinnacle thing. So that's twice in the same season where you've had your hopes built up. You've taken the team to a cup final. You then left out. You then.
Oh, he's got a hat-trick ball, Rafa. He did something else as well. So he left me out of a squad against Tottenham. We were playing Spurs at home. And I can't remember, it was the season we won the Champions League or the season after. And we were playing on the Saturday, 3:00 kickoff, and I wasn't in the squad.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to another episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and this is the second time we've recorded this because I forgot to press play. So the amount of people listen to the podcast from the very beginning, I've always joked about what if I don't actually press play, and it turns out I've got a massive guest on today that I'm very much looking forward to speaking with. He's a former professional footballer that's played for the team that I support. So this is going to be an awesome episode with the information he's going to give, because being a former professional footballer, you think that, you've got the life together, like living this dream, but that hasn't been the case. And what we're going to go into today is going to be absolutely awesome. But I just couldn't believe I forgot to press record. So the gentleman I've got with me today is Stephen Warnock, who is a former professional footballer who's made over 450 appearances for Liverpool, Aston Villa, Blackburn, and Leeds United, playing in the Champions League as well as representing England and going to the World Cup finals in South Africa. He's now a regular football pundit on both TV and radio and works for Sky, BT and the BBC. For the second time, Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Cheers, thanks for having me on. You sure you pressed record?
that annoying little voice in Zoom said in recording, so I hope so. If not, I'll just blame Mikey. I blame Mikey for everything else that goes wrong, but I'll take full responsibility this time. So, Stephen, take me back to what life was like for you growing up, because you started playing football at a very, very young age for Liverpool. So Liverpool's a massive, massive club. There must have been a lot of pressure on you from such a young age. Can you just sort of take my audience back to what life was like there? And we're just going to slowly transition through your football career to sort of where your life is now. But can we just talk about football growing up and what it was like for you?
Well, even before Liverpool, I'd probably say play for my local teams in and around the area. But I was always one of these players where my brother played for the local team, which was called Rufford Colts. And they didn't have an age group which was available for me to play in. So I played a year up and played with lads who were older than me. And it was very good. I loved playing Saturday, Sunday every week. And then as I got a little bit older, got to the age of sort of 10 years old, and a guy from the area sort of put together the elite of the league, if you like, and said, right, we're going to play against Everton, Liverpool, Manchester United, and whoever in the area. So we went and played against Everton. I got picked up by Everton initially to go on trial. They asked me to come on trial, and I agreed to it. And then we played Liverpool a couple of weeks later and scored a few goals, played well in the game, and nothing came of it until I got to McDonald's on the way home with the team. And the coach of the team came in and said, we tried to get hold of you after the game with your parents and have a chat, but we'd like you to come in and have a trial. And I literally went for a trial, and as they say, the rest was history. But my background was I was a Liverpool fan. I grew up standing on the Kop. From my mum and dad are split. My mum's a red, my dad's a blue.
Oh, dear.
My brother's a blue, I'm a red. And my granddad both my granddads were red and blues as well. So it was very much a split family. But as a kid, my dad had season tickets through work for Everton. My brother and my dad used to go to quite a lot of Everton games to watch them. But when I went to Anfield, I just got hooked, stood on the Kop, and that was me done then.
It's kind of like very much from my family. So my dad's a Villa fan, but then on I've got three younger brothers. They're all Arsenal fans for no other reason than growing up. That was when they had the elite team with Thierry Henry and all them lot. But I've been Villa through and through. But interesting. I've heard you say before about when you actually were at Liverpool that you felt like a massive outsider because you weren't a true Liverpoolian. Is that true? Like, whereabouts are you actually from, and how, from such a young age, did that affect you? Because going into a changing room where, again, you are playing with the elite of that age group for a massive club, you kind of expect there to be some sort of standards. But from what I've heard, it sounded like it was a pretty rough time for you back then.
Yeah, I'd only looking back on it, I think there was times where I'd not fear going into training, but I didn't look forward to it because I'm from Ormskirk, which is actually Lancashire. It's 12 miles outside of Liverpool, roughly. It's actually the border of Merseyside, probably 2 miles away but to get to the city centre, it's like 12 miles. My mum and dad are both from the heart of Liverpool. They're both from Bootle. So for me, I grew up with a Scouse upbringing, but I was always, you're born in Ormskirk, you go to school in Ormskirk, you don't sound like a Scouser. I was the only one in the team who was from out of Liverpool. So I turn up with a strange accent that the lads aren't used to. They don't really get. And a lot of the lads would have played together for Liverpool schoolboys, Sefton schoolboys, in and around the area, whereas I was West Lancashire. So I never got to see the players outside of it, whereas a lot of them went to school together as well and mixed outside of football. So whenever I went into training, I always felt that I was coming in a little bit different. I never felt really that comfortable being in and around the change room.
Did you actually have to work harder to try and prove a point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To be accepted, you had to prove that you were arguably one of the best players or the hardest working player, whichever one it was. But I just tended to go in, do my training, keep my head down and go.
At what age did you kind of know that you were going to be a pro? Because again, I know it's slightly different from when you were growing up, but nowadays it's so cutthroat. And you hear a lot of things now about players being released from academies and then committing suicide. It's a real problem that academies are having. So at what age did you kind of know, actually, I've got a chance here? Or was it just one day, oh yeah, by the way, you're training with the reserves or you're training with the first team? Or were you kind of touted from early on as we're kind of grooming you for the first team?
Yeah, I think I realised in and around the age of 14 and 15 that I had potential because I was getting selected for England schoolboys. And I got offered a place at the national school at Lilleshall at the age of 14, but actually turned it down. I wasn't ready to leave home. It was something that I look back on now and wish I'd have done. But I was young. I was probably a little bit homesick. I thought I would have been homesick going there. And officially, I never got offered the position, but they offered me it when I went to the final trial and said, listen, the place is yours. What's your thoughts? And I was like, I'm not so sure. Don't think I can do it. So that was probably when I knew you're in that elite group of sort of 20 players to 25 players in the country. I was playing with the likes of Joe Cole in my age group, who was also, obviously Joe went on to have an incredible career, but we were such a good age group at that time that I was thinking, well, if I'm in and around this age group and the standard of players, then I must be okay. I had clubs constantly interested in me, wanting to take me. So that was where I was thinking, yeah, you've got an opportunity here. But then obviously when you get to the final year in school and you're talking about YTS scholarship forms, what it is now, then you know that you've got a decent chance of making it.
Did you have any friends of yours that didn't make it and then went on to struggle with the mental health that you're aware of? So I know it's a little bit different. It's a lot more cutthroat nowadays. But back in your day, was it still something that's quite prevalent that you, now looking back on retrospectively, you were like, well, actually, my mate Dave actually struggled quite a bit actually when he left, or was it not something that we spoke about? I'd
say it was even more cutthroat back then.
Okay.
Because you didn't have the support systems. You didn't have people to go and talk to. There wasn't that sort of care side to things now. That's probably been put in place. I think clubs are massively staffed now at academy levels, whereas we weren't. We had our first team coach. We had our coaches at each age group, but we had one coach each. Whereas now there's probably 3, 4, and 5 coaches for each age group. There's always someone to talk to, and I think the biggest thing that I noticed in my age groups when players were released was you very rarely heard from them again, and there wasn't this support network behind to try and help you move on. It was just, you haven't made it. That's part and parcel of it. My friend actually wrote a book about it called Michael Owen, Stephen Gerrard and Me, I think it is, or whichever way the wording goes. And he was a young player from the next village down from me in Burscough. And he was touted as one of the next big things. He played up front with Michael Owen. They were formidable goal scorers, the pair of them, at the age of 14 and 15. And then for whatever reason, whether it was the pressure of not being able to make it or just not progressing to the level that Michael and Stephen did, he fell away from the game and ended up going to Dundee. Then he played for Burscough locally. He's now an academy coach at Liverpool. But his book is something that any academy player should read. And I always advocate it to say that if you're a parent of an academy player, you have to read this book because it tells you the pitfalls of what might happen. I don't think many clubs necessarily sit down with the players and say to them, I hope you realise that maybe one out of this room of 30 will make it, but probably none of them will. I don't think that's ever really told properly. And I think the parents often sit there, or the players do, and go, well, I'll be that one.
I think it's also
it's not simple as that.
Because of the level, especially if you're talking your Liverpools, your Man Cities, your Villas, the Premier League academies, it's not real football. It's very much you're passing around. It's a bit lardy-dari. You then can't go from that to almost playing in League Two because you get your head kicked in. It's like it's a very different level of football, if that makes sense. So once you leave the academy, I think some of them also struggle to readjust to go back to real football. Does that make sense what I'm saying with that?
I don't think it's the football side of it. It's the lifestyle, and so I went on loan to Bradford, and I remember going to Bradford and I turned up on loan, and I think I was about 18 or 19. I'd just come back off the back of I broke my leg like 3 times. So this was an opportunity for me to get fit, to show that I could, in my own head, that I can play at that level. But the first day I turned up to train at Bradford, I got to the ground and got changed. And then they said, well, now you jump in your own car and you drive to the training ground, which is a local field. Got to this local field and there was a fella walking his dog, and his dog had a shit in the middle of the pitch. And I was thinking, well, you don't get that at Liverpool.
Yeah.
And then it was always about the training kit. What pieces of training kit have you used? We can only wash so much. We can only do so much. And then you go back to the ground covered in crap, like from muddy pitches, getting in your car, which is filthy, stinking. And it's this acclimatization that people don't get. They don't get the difference between playing for a top team and how clubs have to save money going down. And that's something that they can't take because they come so accustomed to it from the ages of, say, 9 to 18, is that they can't accept that they have to drop to that level to deal with it. And I remember early on when I was at Bradford, it was the perfect club for me to go to. I had senior figures like Peter Abberton, Ashley Ward, Jamie Lawrence, David Weatherall. These are players who were seasoned pros. And what it taught me was they were they'd just come out of administration. So these guys were on the brink of not being paid. They were fighting to stay within the championship. People had people up against the walls because they had mortgages to pay, they had bills to pay. And I was thinking, this is the real world. I never worried about anything like that at Liverpool. Didn't have to worry one bit about anything like that. So I only stayed for 3 months at Bradford because I got injured, came back, but that was the grounding I needed. That was the biggest eye opener for me to go, I don't want to stay at that level. I want to, and it wasn't being disrespectful. No. It was just, I knew what the other side of it was. And I don't think many of those players did and what it was like.
Because there's a lot of complacency, I think. Like, again, when you're these academy players, you're kind of made to seem like you are, because again, you are the elite of that age group. But as you said, you're fighting for a select few places, but you realise, fuck, actually, I've got to work quite hard here because I don't want to go down to that level or lower because that's what life's like. I didn't know that. I think that's fascinating. So when you got injured at that time, is because I've heard you say the story about when you got the wake-up call at the pub. So you broke your leg one of the times. You were spending your money, the insurance money that you got. You're quite out of shape at a pub, and a guy called you out, and you said it was the wake-up call that you needed. Can you share that story? Because that's quite a fascinating story. Because again, we talk about footballers nowadays, 18, 19 years old, they're not taught how to spend all this money. You, again, rightly so, broke your leg, clean, not a good headspace. You're pissing up all this money, but no one seemed to grab you and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that was quite worrying.
Yeah, it was, because I got a payout. It wasn't mega money, but it was like, say, £6,000 or £7,000, which is for a 17, 18-year-old kid who's just broke his leg. That's a lot of money. He was on £64 a week, roughly. So suddenly I'd won the lottery. Do you know what I mean? And I was thinking, well, I was in a really tough place at the time. I think it was the second time I broke my leg, and I was just thinking, where'd you go from here? Because I knew how hard the work was to get back the first time. and I knew it was going to be doubly hard the second time. So I just hit a massive lull and was out drinking all the time during the week as well. And it was one of my school friends, old schoolmates, and he's quite forward. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And he just said, like, "What are you doing? Like, you're out with shape. You've got the opportunity of your lifetime. You're overweight." And I literally stood there and thought, that was the first person that had said it. Because everyone, even now, like academy players, it's almost like you can't say anything to them because they think, well, I don't need you anyway. Whereas I actually appreciated it and I literally put my drink down and went, I'm going home. Because it just hit me. I don't know how. It just literally hit me between the eyes. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
I think that's the thing nowadays. This is why I said, well, I like Mikey so much. You can't surround yourself with yes men. And it's got nothing to do with football. And again, when we go into Stephen's story, like, let's go further on. This isn't about football. This is about life lessons. And this is what I enjoyed about you, Stephen, listening to when you're talking with Paul. So Paul Cope, former guest, he's the connection here. The conversation you guys were having, yes, it was about football, but it was just such deep life lessons. So straight away there, people in your life, you need to have someone that can have these honest conversations with you and you don't take it personally. Too many people nowadays take things personally. So imagine if you'd have turned around to him and said, who the fuck are you to tell me this? I'm a footballer. Fuck you. Carried on drinking. Before you know it, you're then released. Like, it's amazing the fact that even at that young age, just something in you was like, this person's trying to help me.
Yeah.
Fair fucking point. Crack on. I think that's absolutely awesome. So life lesson for people right there. Now, I just want to fast forward a little bit now. So we're now in the 2004-2005 season when you're at Liverpool. And I've got a quote here from you saying, on a personal level, the Carling Cup and Champions League finals stand out as particular low points for me. I'd played every round of the League Cup before the final and missed out on a medal. Then when I wasn't in the squad for the European Cup final, I'd have to say it was the lowest point of all. So context, you played every single game of this League Cup competition. Liverpool then get into the final against Chelsea. You are not in the squad at all. They end up losing 3-2. Gerrard scores an own goal. And you don't get a medal. Not even a runner's up medal. Then you get the Champions League, which for a player, apart from international duty, the Champions League is the creme de la creme. You played in a few group games. You played in the quarterfinal. And can you then explain the story of how you actually? I've heard this on another podcast about what happened, and I've actually shared it. The owner of the gym I'm at is a Liverpool fan, and I actually shared this story with him. Can you share the story of how you actually found out that you weren't in the Champions League squad?
Yeah. So usually after the last game of the season, you have 2-week period where the Champions League game's 2 weeks after the final game. So we had training for 2 weeks. Everyone was training hard, which is obviously trying to push themselves into the squad for the final. There was probably 30 odd players to get into the squad of 18. And I'd played a lot of games that season. I was quite I wouldn't say an important player, but I was used a lot within that season. And we were traveling to Istanbul 2 or 3 days before the final. And the squad list went up after the final training session in Liverpool. And my name was on the board and I'd made the 18. So I was showered as quick as I could, out into the car, rang the family, book your tickets, get yourself there. I'll sort the match tickets out. So everyone's sort of celebrating because you're thinking, well, biggest game in club football and you're part of it, which was an incredible thing. And probably 2 or 3 hours later, I just got a phone call from Paco Ayestaran, who was Rafa Benitez's number 2. Apologies, we've made an error on the squad list. You're not in the squad anymore. And the rumour has it, and where it's come from, I'm not going to disclose. It's not a rumour. But one of the players, the Spanish players who'd been out for the full season and played the last game of the season, went up and complained. And they made the decision to take me out the squad and put him in it. And I didn't get an apology from Rafa. I didn't get a phone call from him. And my feeling towards the club and Rafa just sort of disintegrated then. And I was really, really frustrated.
How did that affect your self-confidence and self-worth as a player? Like, because when it comes to what's happened further on down the line, that's quite a pinnacle thing. So that's twice in the same season where you've had your hopes built up. You've taken the team to a cup final. You then left out. You then
he's got a hat-trick ball, Rafa. He's done so. He did something else as well. So he left me out of a squad against Tottenham. We were playing Spurs at home, and I can't remember if it was the season we won the Champions League or the season after. And we were playing on the Saturday, 3:00 kickoff, and I wasn't in the squad. And it was my friend's birthday. And we were in training the next morning. I think we were in at like 10 or 11 o'clock. And I went out the night before and had a few drinks, had a whatever. I was probably half cut, turned up for training, which wasn't great, but I was pissed off that I wasn't in the squad. I sound like an alcoholic here, but I'm not. And when I got into training, I was putting my training kit on and I was sat on the bench ready to go out. And Rafa came down the stairs from his office and he was like, "Where are you going?" So I was like, "Out to train." And he was like, "You're playing today?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." I said, "The squad list's in there. Go and check it." So I walked into the changing room with him. "No, we make a mistake." He says, "You start today." So I remember he walked out the changing room and I thought, I've got a decision to make here. I either tell him I was out last night or I keep quiet. But if I keep quiet, I'm in no fit state to, well, I wasn't hammered. I'd have played and I'd have been fine, but I wouldn't have done myself justice. Yeah. So I walked up to the office and I said to him, "Listen, I went out for a few drinks last night." And he was like, "Well, that's unprofessional." And I went, "Oh, so putting the wrong name up on the board's not professional. And you've done that before to me." Because there've been other incidences as well. Anyway, he put me on the bench and I came on with about 30 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go in the game. So there've been numerous occasions with Rafa where he got things wrong or his staff had got things wrong. So, yeah.
But on a personal level for you, how did that affect your confidence as a player? Did you know your self-worth? Was it a case of, fuck you, I know that I'm good enough, you made a mistake here? Or did it knock your confidence, play on your mind a little bit that somehow he didn't?
Yeah, knocked my confidence massively. It showed me he had no respect for me as well. Especially the Istanbul incident, not even to come me and have the bollocks to do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're the boss of a company and you've got a big call to make, you make the call.
Yeah.
Do that. Have respect for who you're talking to, because if he'd have done that and rang me, listen, I'd have still been pissed off, but I'd have gone, well, at least he rang me.
Yeah.
And had the bottle to do that. So that was that. And my decision over the summer was I wanted out.
Yeah.
And then, if you don't mind me going on a little bit,
No.
It got to the summer and I'd been linked with a move to Blackburn, and Lucas Neal was coming the other way, and everything had been agreed. I was in the car on the way to Blackburn, and it was the final day of the transfer window. It was probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think the transfer window shut around about 11 or 12 o'clock. I can't remember what time. And I got to the service station halfway down to Blackburn, got a phone call, pull over, Liverpool don't want you to go. And I was like, well, where's this come from? We don't know, but it's come from the top. You're not going. All right, fair enough. They must want me. So go back in the next day and I'm sat in the treatment room where lads used to congregate really. And I think we'd signed a couple of players possibly. And I was just sat there and Rafa walked in. "What are you doing here?"
Fucking hell.
And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "I thought you were going to Blackburn." I said, "I got a phone call to turn round." Not from me. And it had come from Rick Parry and the owner. They didn't want a young player who'd been in the England squad and things like that to leave. They didn't think I'd been given a fair crack of the whip, but they hadn't understood what had gone on behind the scenes as well and how pissed off I was. So I literally walked out the changing room, told him to fuck off basically, and how angry I was. I walked into the changing room and I rang my agent straight away and I went, "Get me out of here." And I told him what had gone on. And we found out then that it had come from Rick Parry and Mr. Moores, the owner. And I was furious, if I'm being honest. Yeah. So got to the point and I didn't really play much for the rest of the half the season until I got my move to Blackburn in the January. And thankfully, they hadn't signed anyone in the meantime, and they kept hold of me.
Because then from Blackburn, you then ended up at my club, Aston Villa. And again, this is something where I was doing my research in. And again, it's fascinating because this is a bizarre thing for me with this. Like, because I remember playing computer games and I remember playing with you as a left back on the computer games. This for me is bizarre, and understanding what's in my research into you and understanding what the manager said is fantastic. So then go to Villa. You started off the season, the first season you played, and then Gerard Houllier came in at the time, and then he forced you to play the reserves. I've got quite a few follow-on questions from this. So you're there, top of your game, and new manager comes in, he then puts you in the reserves. Then a new manager comes in after that, replaces Gerard Houllier. So Alex McLeish comes in, and he then says that he's impressed with your phenomenal attitude. And then you ended up playing every single game that season under Alex McLeish. I think you missed 3. So my question with this is, how mentally did you keep an impressive attitude when you've been relegated to the reserves? Because you see it nowadays, you get people like Ross Barkley's, just to name one person, that end up going to the reserve of a team. They rot there, and that's it. Their head rolls off. They think, fuck this. I'm just going to take my paycheck. Not fucking bothered. I'm a knockdown to go to the championship. I'm done here. How did you keep such good attitude that Alex McLeish came in, pinpointed you and said, I'm impressed with you. Your attitude's amazing. Straight back into the team you go. How did you do that? Because that shows a shit ton of resilience.
Yeah, to a certain degree, but it also comes from good management. And Villa fans will probably be very surprised at me saying that, but the way he handled my situation was brilliant. The situation with Gerard Houllier as well, like near enough finished my career, in the fact of when he came in, I played for England against France in the November. And by December, he put me in the reserve team dressing room off the back of a mistake he made. So I don't know whether you know the story about it.
No, I don't at all.
So I lived in the Northwest and I was commuting up and down, but I'd stay 2-3 nights a week in Birmingham because we were never in under Martin O'Neill. And I mean, literally hardly ever in the training ground. It was the way he trained. He'd have us in 2-3 times a week. So I just used to stay over and left my family back home. And when Gerard Houllier came in, he said to me, you need to move to Birmingham. And I said, okay, well, I'll move in January when the kids and stuff can move, but I'll carry on doing what I'm doing. I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with it, whatever. And he turned around and he said, okay, well, when we play in the Northwest, you don't have to ask me if you can go home, because Emil Heskey and Brad Friedel also lived in the Northwest. And he said, you 3 can you do what you need to do. Fair enough. So we play Manchester City in a game and we got beat 4-1 in the game, I think it was. After the game, I don't know whether there was a couple of days off or something. So myself, Brad and Emil, we go, but about 4 or 5 other players just leave as well, but they don't ask for his permission. So on the Monday, he come into training, he gets everyone in a group and he goes, you all owe me an apology. Brad, Emil, you can go. So I'm stood there thinking, well, why can't I go? And he says, so the player's like, oh, sorry, I apologise. He says to me, why aren't you apologising? So I was like, what for? I said, you told me that I did not say this. And I was like, yes, you did. Are you calling me a liar? So I went, yeah, I am. I said, you pulled me in and spoke to me about it, about my situation, and he would not have it. And I remember thinking, wow, this is incredible. So anyway, he goes, go and train. So I went and trained. And the next day I came in, and at Villa, we used to have, it's all changed now, I think, but we used to have our lockers with our names on. And I came in the next day and I literally opened the door and my locker was opposite and my name was off the board on my locker. And the kit man went, Stevie, I'm so sorry, but he's told me to put you in the reserve team changing room. So I was like, why? And he was like, I don't know. So I went and knocked on his office door and he said, you've disrespected me. You need to apologise. And I was like, I'm not apologising for something that I've not done. And he basically said, well, that's you done then. I went, fine. So I'm not having it. So I think that was like November, December time. And then come January, Kenny Dalglish was manager at Liverpool. And Kenny asked me to go back to Liverpool. And they rang Villa, made a formal approach. Gary McAllister pulled me on the training ground and said to me, listen, it's a good move for you. I think it's right. You need to leave and whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay, ready to go home and sort everything out. And next day came in, deals off. Villa suddenly wanted over £500,000 loan fee for me. And it was just Houllier being awkward. Yeah. And I know it was. And it was almost like he couldn't accept, that I was going back to our previous club and I was getting the opportunity to still play Premier League. He wanted to make me rot.
Yeah.
And then he obviously had his illness in the towards the end of the season. And Alex McLeish called me, and someone from the club called my agent and just said, don't want him to leave. Clean slate when he comes back, and he's hugely important to me. And I just went, great. That's what I want to hear. So that off season, I got myself so fit and came back and just absolutely attacked pre-season. And I'd challenge you to find anyone who says my attitude to training or my commitment to football was not unbelievable, because I know it. I've seen that when I did research into you about your tackling and training. Like, you literally took training as seriously as games. So I actually saw that. And, But this is the thing that I want to get out of this specific Villa story, not purely because I'm a Villa fan. It's purely your mentality of how to overcome that. Because a lot of people, and I said this on my last podcast, have a victim mentality. So and that's it, that they'll crumble. But you seem to have done, which is my attitude. Fuck you. But I'm going to come back so unbelievably fucking fit that you're going to have to play me, and you've got no choice. And I think that was it. Have. Yeah, that was my attitude, and that was what I was desperate to do, and to prove to people like the fans at Villa. I wanted to try and get back into the England squad. There was so many things that I wanted to try and achieve, but then I did that, and there were situations at the end of the season where Stiliyan got ill. Petrov, and we all know the story with Stiliyan and what went on. And I was handed the captaincy off the back of it to take over. And more often than not, I'd hold meetings within the training ground because we were having a tough time. We were down the bottom of the league and we were struggling. And Randy Lerner rang me probably twice a week towards the end of the season, probably for a month or two, thanking me for my effort in the training grounds, for everything that I was trying to do for the players. Because I was trying to do as much as I could to help us to prevent us going down, trying to put extra training sessions on for the players, speaking to the management and telling them what the players were feeling. And he basically turned around and said to me, like, we'll be rewarding you with a new contract when we stayed up. So I walked away from the end of that season thinking, like, made up. I was really proud of myself. I'm not going to lie, because to go and fill Stiliyan's boots, and I'm not saying I filled them, but Stiliyan's
you stepped up.
Yeah, Stiliyan's an amazing guy, an amazing captain, and a person around the training ground who I tried to not copy but emulate and take the best things that he used to do. And I tried to make that transition into captaincy at Villa like I was just doing what Stan would do. And that was what I tried to do for the players. And to get the feedback from the owner, I was really pleased and proud and thought, well, yeah, you've done well there. You've done what you wanted to do. You've achieved safety. And people might say, well, that's not an achievement for Aston Villa, but it was. We were in a rut.
Yeah.
And then Alex McLeish leaves his position. I was on holiday. I was in America. I was on a cruise in America, and I got a phone call from my agent saying Paul Lambert's being appointed and doesn't want you. So I'd gone from the owner telling me that he wanted to give me a new contract to being told I wasn't wanted. And I thought, I'd played a lot of that season. I don't know if you remember, but I played probably the second half of the season as a centre midfielder. Because we had obviously Stiliyan being injured, and we had a lot of injuries in that position. So I played out of position. I thought, no, I'm going to come back and show you I'm a left back, and I play for England. I don't play for England for no reason. You haven't seen me play in that position, so you don't know what my attitude's like. And I came back, and I was the fittest player. Paul Lambert turned around publicly in front of the squad and said, like, you need to take a look at his attitude. He's got the best attitude every day when he comes into training. Singled me out for it. And I thought, I'm winning him over here. We went out to America and played 3 or 4 games. I played really well in all the games. And I thought, I'm back in here. Came back. We played Nottingham Forest on a Friday night. Everyone was jet lagged. Everyone was knackered. I played not great, and I know it, but it was pre-season. But I thought, just keep running, get through it, you'll be fine. Came into training the next day, and I got called into the office, and he just sat me down. And he went, "That's you done." And I went, "What?" And he went, "That's you done. You're with the reserves now for the rest of the season." And I was like, "You're fucking serious?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I went, "What, for what reason?" And he went, "I'm the manager of the football club. I don't have to give you a reason." And I thought, what a cop-out. So again, my confidence had gone from being sky high to absolutely nosedive and thinking, fucking hell, it's happened again. And I'm thinking, this is incredible. Now, without going into it too much, I know it was like financial reasons. I was on a half decent contract, nowhere near what people are on now. But there was not only myself, there was a few other players, Alan Hutton, Stephen Ireland. We all got pushed out. And it was just like,
I remember that. I remember that time of Villa, exactly what you said about being in the rut, because I think 1 or 2 seasons afterwards when we got relegated in such a horrific fashion. And again, I remember that I was at the game, that Forest game, the pre-season friendly. I was there, so I remember thinking it was like it ended up being 3-3. We're winning 3-1, and then they came back. It's 3-3. Like I said, I sound like a die-hard Villa fan. I'm a Villa fan. I don't, but so with that again, this is what we want to go with this. How do you then recover from that? Because as you said, that it happened again. So So that was at the moment at Villa then that
I was fucked.
So how did you carry on playing with that? Did
I never ever reached the level again, because I never felt good enough after that. I was always waiting for the next one, and it came again. I was at Leeds. I've been signed by Neil Warnock. He signed me in the January from Villa. So I had 6 months left on my contract. We agreed to terminate the contract. Went to Leeds. I was actually going to West Ham first. I was going on loan for 6 months, and the contract was basically that. I think there was 13 games left of the season. We had to play Villa, and they said I had to play 12 of the 13 games remaining. So I couldn't play in that Villa game. So I had to play all the games to get another contract. And I thought, that's very easy for West Ham to just turn around and go, it doesn't play in the last game.
Yeah.
I just thought it doesn't stack in my favour whatsoever. I would have backed myself to do it, but Leeds rang me when I was on my way to West Ham and said, we'll give you a 2.5-year deal. They were in the promotion places at the time, the playoff positions at the time. And I just thought, do you know what? Leeds is a massive club. If we can get them in the Premier League, that'd be brilliant. So I went to Leeds in the January, and Neil Warnock left in about the April. Brian McDermott came in, and it was the last game of the season. We were playing Watford away, and when we were leaving on the bus on the Friday, he pulled me and said, "Can I have a word?" So I was like, "Yeah, no probs." And he went, "You can find yourself a new club in the summer." And I was like, "Why?" And he just said, I need to go younger. We need to do different things, and didn't really give me any proper reason. So I just said, I've got 2 years left. I ain't going nowhere. I said, I'll tell you that now. I said, I'll prove you wrong. So I came back in pre-season, and he was still wanting me out, and he made me captain because I proved him wrong. And I played pretty much all the games. And then the new owner came into the club, and the new owner wanted me out as well. Because when I look back on it now, I was captain at most clubs I was at. I was very vocal, but I wasn't afraid of being vocal for the players. Something needed doing, and it didn't get done. I got frustrated by it because it was for the benefit of the club and the team. And sometimes I think even now when I look back on it, you go, sometimes things are out of your hands and you can't control them. If I'd known that now, I probably wouldn't have been as vocal. I'd have probably changed my approach to things. But yeah, my career was never the same after that. I always just never got to the level that I could get to because my confidence was shot.
So looking back at it, would you say that, because obviously, it's a bit of a spoiler alert, we're going to go into a second about depression. Again, that's my backstory.
Yeah.
So would you say at that moment with Villa, that's when your mental health really started to suffer, like depressive tendencies, or was it just more of a confidence thing at that point?
No, I think there was depression as well. So this will probably surprise you as well. So we played Blackburn in the semi-final of the Carling Cup at Villa Park, and we've made it into the final that night. I scored a goal on the night. We won, I think it was 6-4 on aggregate or 6-4 on the night, I think it was. And I went back to my hotel after it with my best friend, my ex-partner, my ex-wife, and her friend. And I remember after it, we were all saying, should we go out and have a drink and celebrate? Not just like the four of us, but the team. And no one really wanted to go out. And I thought there was a great camaraderie amongst the players, but there was just something missing there. And I remember going out that night and having a few drinks. And I remember getting back to the room and I actually cried. And I remember thinking, like, because I was not enjoying it. And I was thinking, why am I so miserable when we've just got to the final of a Carabao Cup and I'm playing in my first competitive final? But it's not enough. And I remember probably sat there like being dead upset. My mate was like, no, it'd be fine, mate. You just had a couple of drinks and things like that. And I was thinking, it's not that. And now that I look back on it now, it was depression because of everything that had gone on previously. And even leading into coming back that year, the year after, I'd obviously had that moment then, and then we went to the World Cup in the summer. My auntie passed away in the summer when I got back from the World Cup, but my auntie was like my second mum. She used to take me to my training when my mum used to be a nurse, so she'd work a lot of nights, and my dad was working as well. So when they couldn't take me, my auntie would take me everywhere, and I used to spend a lot of time with them. And she passed away. And just everything just disappeared then. Hunger, drive. It's hard to explain, but just life just didn't seem interesting anymore. And I was just like, yeah, it was tough.
When you say it's hard to explain, I think any person here that suffers depression, Mike has as well, we know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. So I know it's weird when you say it, when you're trying to explain depression to people. It's like until you've actually gone through it, you don't get it. But I know exactly.
Well, I didn't get it then, but I get it now.
Yeah, when you're trying to explain it, it's hard to articulate to someone because until you actually experience what's going on. Because again, I didn't know I was depressed at the time. I had no idea. So when you look back and you think, how the fuck was I functioning? In that headspace. So how do you think that you were functioning in that headspace? Is it because you were a family man? Is it because of the professional you were? Or is it you just thought, well, it's fine, I'll get over it? How did you?
Yeah, just that.
Just get on with it.
Time. That saying, time's a healer. Bollocks. It's not. It's absolutely not one bit. Like I still get upset about it now. It's a hard thing to talk about. It's not that. The big thing for me is that I had a routine, and this is something that we'll get onto in a little bit. Yes, but that was the difference. Was I was getting up and I knew I was going into training, so I knew my time frames during the day. I knew I'd be actively busy to keep my mind busy away from that. Now, fast forwarding on a bit, when I came out the game, that was the worst part of being depressed, because you don't have that time frame. You wake up every day and I haven't got a job. I've got a job, but it's not to the degree of what I had before. Working in the media isn't the same time and the same dedication as to what it goes into a football club and being a professional athlete. So understanding how to deal with depression at different times depends on your lifestyle at that point in time as well.
Would you say that your biggest thing with this would potentially have been grief, grieving your auntie, but then also potentially grieving your career? The fact of you've gone
I had
down,
a double whammy.
Yeah, and then you were able to suppress it because you still had to get up, do a job, and then afterwards, because again, I remember I've got in the notes here that you look back on your career and you were very negative about it, even though you'd played the Champions League, played for England. Your career was fucking awesome, captained all these clubs, but you look back so negatively. Is that because you think you just suppressed, so that you were not able to enjoy what was going on because you were almost grieving as you were playing, especially at Leeds? Was that kind of how it was?
I think there's two sides to it. I think there's that side of it there where you talk about the suppression and just dealing with it and getting through life, which is where you lead to. But there's also the other side of it where I knew I was good enough to play higher, but it wasn't working because of that side of it. So there was a double-edged sword where I was like, I knew I was good enough to play in the Premier League, but I couldn't get to that level again because of the suppression and what was going on. So I was beating myself up two ways. And that's very difficult rut to get out of. And the big thing now is in football, in life at the moment, the big talking parts or points are mental health. And go and speak to someone. You didn't speak to someone when I was playing. I had a psychologist when I was at Blackburn, but he was a sports psychologist. I don't think I'd have been overly comfortable talking to him about other things. It was more preparation for games and things like that. I don't know whether I'd have... Listen, it might have been different. I had a great relationship with him. I still speak to him now. He'd probably be, if he listened to this, he'd probably be punching the screen saying, hell, I wish you'd have come and spoke to me, because he probably would have helped me. And I'm sure he would have, but it just wasn't the thing to do. It wasn't until I got in a real rut when I finished playing that I sought help.
Can you talk to me about that rut? So I remember you speaking to Paul about being on the motorway on the phone with your sister-in-law, and you basically said at that point that you wanted to end it all. Would you mind talking to me about those sort of days when it got really bad?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, when you come out of football, it's like, what do you do next? Where'd you go? What career path are you going to take? So obviously I went into the media, and it's finding a structure every day with it's sort of an old cliche what I say about it, but being in football is like being in the army. You're told where to be, what time to be there, what to wear, what to eat, and it's very structured in that way. And suddenly you wake up, and I was warned by it by Michael Tong, who I played with at Leeds, and he fell out the game for probably 4 or 5 months. And he said, I remember speaking to him about it, and he went, make sure when you retire, you've got something. And I remember thinking, joking, aren't you? Be fine. I'll just go and play golf every day. I'll do what I want to do and things will be fine. And then when I did fall out of it, I was finding it difficult to find a structure in my life. Everything was very ad hoc. So I'm freelance, like in the media now. So I could get a job tomorrow. I could get a phone call, or I might not have working for 2-3 weeks. And it was very difficult to know again when it was coming in and how it was coming in. So there's that sense of not feeling wanted again, and not having a stable contract. Whereas at football, you go to a football club, you either know you're on a 1-year deal or 3 or 4, whatever it might be. So you know where you're at and what you've got coming in. And I just found it very difficult to deal with. And then I started having problems with my marriage and things like that. That broke down. And I just remember thinking, like, this is tough. I was not speaking to my children at the time, which was obviously through my fault of my own as well. But it just got to the point where I was in the car and I was like, how do you get out of this? Like, how do you actually physically get to the point where you go, right, this is how you get out of it? I didn't have a clue. Literally didn't have a clue. And it was interesting because the way it came about was I'd been to see another therapist, and I got to the point where I was like, I felt okay, but I never felt like I was getting out of it. I just felt like I was going there and having a chat, like just not really delving into where I needed to get to. And the biggest thing I wasn't getting was answers. It was, you'll work it out for yourself. I couldn't work it out. I tried for a year and a half, 2 years, and I couldn't work it out. So when I, probably 6 months, 8 months before it, I was getting off the train in Liverpool. I'd just been to my brother's, and I got the train into Liverpool. And as I was coming out, I bumped into Kopi, and he was like, "How are you, mate?" And it was 10 o'clock at night. He was like, "Where are you going?" It was a Monday night or a Tuesday night, something very random. And I was like, "Oh, I live in town. I live in Liverpool now. I've like split up with my ex and whatever." And he was like, "Do you want to go and get a pint?" So I was like, "Yeah, go on then." So we went and had a pint, and we were just sat there, and he started telling me how he'd been through similar stuff himself. And the biggest thing I came away from when we were sat there chatting was, he said, "I'm not happy every day." He said, "But I'm content." And he said, "When you get to the place where you're content, you'll be happy every day." And I remember like sat there thinking, "The fuck's he going on about?" I really did.
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, what's he on about there? And he was telling me about what he'd been doing, how he'd been learning to be sort of a coach, if you like, and to help people get out of depression and things. And I'd obviously spoke to my sister-in-law, thought about ending it. I thought of other ways of ending it as well. I'd planned another way to sort of end it and sort of get out of it, if you like. And I don't know why, I just messaged him off the back of it. I don't know if I'd been listening to a podcast of his or something. He'd done like a little podcast series. And I just thought, last chance saloon, literally that. And I thought, and it was interesting because when I texted him, he didn't quite get what I was after. And then when I texted him again, when we sat and spoke, we were on a Zoom like this and talking. And he said, "I've been waiting for you to ring me or text me." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "I can see it in you when you're on TV, when you're on the radio, I can hear it." He went, "You're not happy." He said, "Your voice doesn't sound right." He said, "Your body language is all wrong." And I remember coming off that hour, maybe an hour and a half, whatever it was with him, and just thinking, I'm going to be all right. Literally did.
Because he got it. He got it. He saw
what he'd been there.
See. Yeah.
And he'd been there. And he said to me, the biggest thing for me was, though, he went, "If you're willing to put the work in, I'll get you I'll give you the answers." He said, "You don't have to find them yourself." He went, "I'll give you the answers." And I remember thinking, fucking hell, I'll do. So yeah, we sat down, we did. He said to me initially, we'll chat for 6 to 8 weeks, and that'll be your course. And we still chat every week now. We're probably 5-6 months on, because he helps me so much.
Can you try and summarize? And again, I don't expect you to go into massive amounts of detail because it's your real personal stuff. How has Paul helped you so much? Because obviously, as we spoke off air, when he came onto the podcast, he blew my fucking mind. He's blown Mikey's mind. He blew my audience. Out of all the podcasts I've ever done, that's the one that people have said, fucking hell, that Paul. You've actually worked with him. And you're saying that you were literally thinking of ending it. That's how low you were. What has Paul done to give you that contentment?
An understanding of why things happen and how to deal with situations. We often tell ourselves narratives in our heads. Every single day we tell ourselves a story. If someone's not text you back in a certain time, if someone's not rang you, it's the worst feeling ever. It's that, well, I'm not important again, or we believe that they're not interested in us. You when you text someone, I always think of this. If I was to text someone now, doesn't mean that they pick up the phone instantly and go, "I'm going to start a text conversation here." Their phone might not even be on them. They might be in a gym and they're upstairs doing a spin class or running, and the phone's downstairs. But you're wanting this instant response, this instant craving of attention, and you don't get it. And it's the same with anything. So I tell myself, they're not answering me. Why aren't they answering me? So you start to tell yourself these stories in your head of what's going on, but it's always a negative one. It's never a positive one. So you end up beating yourself up. And one of the big things was always, can you affect what's going on with the issue that's happening at that point? If you can, great, you can try and deal with it. But if it's out of your hands and it's not achievable, then don't worry about it. So problems that were big for me, that I was creating as big problems in my head, he taught me how to make them to be not problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was huge for me. The feeling of not feeling wanted. He gave me confidence back in myself as well. I was just thinking, fucking hell, you're a horrible person at times, and the type of person that you are, and the way you've become. But then I've almost got, like, it's interesting now. I work with certain people, or I see certain people, and when they see me, they're like, "You look great, and you sound great," and people notice it in your body language, in the way that you talk, and the way that you are. It's very difficult for me to describe what he's done for me, but he's made me happier. Like, he's given me that contentment every day. Listen, every day is not great, and it's something we talk about all the time. Is why do we wake up some days feeling great, and why do we wake up some days feeling bad? The bad days are the ones when you used to wake up and you'd think, "Oh, the world's going to end. Yeah. This is going to be the worst day of my life, and things are going to get worse and worse and worse." But he's taught me how to deal with them situations. That, okay, some days are going to be shit, but try and make the best of them. Try and learn from them and process them and get on with them. I've had tough days this week, but I get that period where, I don't know whether you've been the same in the past, but you beat yourself up for not just an hour, but a day, a week, a month. Whereas
that was my life, yeah.
Yeah, but I've had things this week that have been difficult, and I'll think about them, and they're gone in 5 minutes, or they're gone in 2 minutes. The other side of it, where I knew I was getting better, which was really interesting, is there's been quite a few, but I go to bed now and I put my head on the pillow, and there's not things racing through my mind. I sleep better than I've ever slept in my life, because there's not a worry in my head. There's not a fear of anything that's going on that I can't control. Every situation pretty much is controllable to a certain extent. Now, as long as you feel like you're in control of those situations, or you can in some way deal with that situation, then everything's fine. And there's just a clarity in my head, which I can't really explain. But it's just a great, great feeling.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, people try and control uncontrollables.
Yeah.
The only thing you can control is essentially what you said there, is your response to it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. And it then gives you complete control over a situation. I can't control how Mike responds. I can't control what you say on this podcast. All I can do is control my reaction to it. I just want to unpick a few things that you said there. The first thing, I want to take it all the way back to when you first started with Paul. And again, I love Paul to bit. I think Paul's absolutely fucking awesome. What Paul did by talking was freed you to talk. Yeah. And this is what you're now doing, because you're now talking freely, and you're now creating the way for people to talk. So you don't realize that you're doing this, but just by you talking now openly, like you have done, you're going to be helping some people. Some people are like, fucking hell, so they're going to play it to their brothers or their sisters, whoever needs it. So that's what Paul did for you. You're now paying it forward, and I'm now paying it forward with the podcast. That's why I do it. So anyone's listening to this, that's what you got to do. You got to pay that forward. And then also, then what you talk about there, Stephen, about these thoughts, the fact that now they come and they kind of go. It's because we spoke about this on a previous episode. Like, thoughts only have power when we give them the emotion. If you can just notice them coming in and just watch them go, they can't control you. The problem is, I spoke about this before, like, you've got your thoughts and you. And the problem is, when you're so intertwined, you can't see reality because you're so clouded in your own thoughts. And all you've done there is you've separated yourself and you've got you back. You're now you. You're the best version of you. And you can see the bullshit that's you were made to think was you. You're not good enough, all this confidence. But you're now free again, and you're now you. And it, honestly, I love Paul. Paul is honestly absolutely incredible. And also another thing I want to pick up on there is, like I always say, and you just hit the nail on the head there. Everyone has bad days. It is impossible. I don't give a fuck who you are, how much money you have, how successful you claim to be. You will always have a bad day.
Yeah.
But it's all about trying to bring it down from a bad day to a bad hour, to a bad minute, to a bad few seconds.
Correct.
That is the aim. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to summarize that there. Stephen, I'm very, very cautious of your time. So I just want to finish off with the final question, which I ask all my guests. What advice would you give to someone who feels stuck and out of control with their life?
See, this is a big thing that I often hear at the moment. And what you'll get from what I've said previously, or probably back this up, is it's important to talk. Now, I get that to a certain degree. There's no point in talking to the wrong person.
Yeah.
So if you want to become a footballer, go and speak to a footballer. Don't speak to Dave on the street who knows fuck all about football, but thinks he knows about it.
Oh, every football.
If you want to become an entrepreneur, go and sit in a room with an entrepreneur who's done it, who's got a background on it, who's been through it, who knows the pros and cons of what to do. You don't ask for advice from someone who's not been and done what they are doing. My daughter wants to be a swimmer. I'll put her in touch with swimming coaches or successful swimmers. I won't put her in touch with myself because I'm not a swimmer. I don't know what it takes to become a professional swimmer, to become an Olympian. That's not my forte. But the big thing for me was when I needed to speak to someone, I knew Paul had been through it. So I'm going to go and speak to a man who's been through it and who's come out the other side and is very happy and is very content in his life. And I was jealous of that. That was the big thing for me, was to go and speak to someone who's been through it. And it's so important that people don't get the right message and not the wrong message. Speak to someone. No, speak to the right person. Go and speak to someone who's been there, understands it, and knows what it's like to go through it. It was interesting. There's been a couple of players recently who've come out and said that they're suffering from depression.
Yep.
I think it was the lad who you're gonna have to help me out here. I think he was a Peterborough striker, and
I'm not sure his name, but I think I know who you mean.
Yeah. So
we'll get Mikey to ping across the bottom.
yeah. So anyway, I got in contact with him when he posted on Instagram about his depression and how he was suffering, and I just said to him, "Listen, if you need to chat, if you want to." I've been through it myself very recently. I told him everything that I've been through, just over a message. And he just said, I've got people around me and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, I've tried to reach out and speak to him. I messaged Stephen Colker, who is going through depression himself and things like that, just to say like how pleased I am that things are going well for him. And I think you get like a sense of, do you know what, I've been through this, so I know what these guys have gone through. They need a pat on the back to realise like what you've done is incredible to get out the other side. Or if you do need help, that I'm quite happy to meet up and chat with you. I always speak to players who I know who've come out the game recently and just say, if you fancy meeting up for a chat, just let me know. And whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. Or whether in 4 years, 3 months, whatever it might be, they might go, he's been through that. He knows what it's like. This is why I think it's important for me to do the podcasts.
Yes.
Because obviously I'm doing this one with you. I've done one with Paul as well. Is people, I've not talked about this publicly properly yet. Because in all honesty, I haven't had the confidence to, because I wasn't comfortable with where I've been and what I'd done. But now I am. I'm more than happy to speak about it. And I think a lot of people will probably get in touch with me after it and think, do you know what? I'm so glad you spoke about it and help me, talk to me about it.
You've given me goosebumps. You've given me goosebumps because the thing is, Stephen, you automatically have authority. You have authority. So by you coming out and talking like you are now and being open about it and being so confident in the fact that you can help people, you do not understand the impact that you're going to have. Like someone like me, I'm a nobody that's trying to help people. And again, I get amazing guests on like you guys. And again, I'm working my way up through the ranks. You are already there. So by you doing what you're doing, you have absolutely no fucking idea the people that you're going to help. And when you start talking about like you're doing now and it becomes public, because some of these people may not have responded to you because they're like, well, what the fuck does he know? Or he just wants to jump on this bandwagon. When they hear what you've gone through, they'll be like, shit. And you're going to help so many fucking people. Because I do this all the time. I'll see people post off on Instagram. I may not even know them because I've got a virtual assistant that follows people for me and be like, I'm really struggling. I'll just pop them a message saying, listen, I'm here if you want to talk. Sometimes they'll be like, what the fuck do you know? I'm like, well, actually, here's my podcast. Here's my story. Like, I'm here. Sometimes I don't respond, but at least you can do that. And I think what you're doing now, actually reaching out to these players, is incredible.
Well, the thing is, though, it's not just players, though. It's anyone in life. And I understand there's a certain side of it where, yes, like when I talked before about speak to the right person who's been in that industry. And I know it'll be football players and things like that, but coming out of any sports is similar as well. It was interesting when you spoke then about people not knowing what you've been through. I went out a while ago to watch. It was last season. Liverpool were playing Man United at Man United when the game got called off. Yes. And I went out for a few drinks with my mates to watch it. And I was in a bar with a lad, with probably 6 or 7 of my mates. It was like an outside seating area. And we were just chatting, and one of the lads who I hadn't seen for a long time was like, how are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. So I've been in a bit of a shit place. I've been in therapy for a while. And he like looked at me like, what? And it was the first time I'd really spoke about it. And I went, yeah, I nearly killed myself a while ago. And he like looked at me and he, like, did you just say that? And he was like, fucking hell, I didn't realise that. And I was like, well, I haven't told you, that's why. I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, right. And suddenly though, he was like questioning me. Where did you get to? What had happened? Where did you be? And suddenly he wanted to know everything about it and how I got out of it and where I'd been. Because I think everyone, to a certain degree, wonders if they've been depressed or are depressed. They don't get it.
No.
They don't understand it. I think a lot of people don't want to admit it.
No.
I don't think I wanted to admit it because it's like, oh, I'm a sportsman, I'm an athlete, I'm super fit, I've got to be mentally strong. But it was interesting just to get that response off him. Was fucking hell, that's great. I'm really pleased for you.
I think that's the interesting thing with this. I say this a lot. Every single person on this planet has mental health. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to suffer with it. It's like cardiovascular health, bone health, brain health.
Yeah.
But people think they're invincible to it. But actually,
absolutely,
wouldn't it be a lot better now that your mate, if he ever does start to slip, be like, oh, Stephen's told me about this. Right. And this is what I'm trying to do, this podcast. I'm trying to stop people go down that rabbit hole that me and you went down. You get the bottom of that thing. And once you're there, it's hard to say, but when you're in the darkest of days, if I'd gone back and time traveled, I'd have told myself to go fuck myself because I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, of course.
When you went way down, you can be stopped. And when you just slightly get out, someone can grab you by the collar and pull you out the other side, which is exactly what Paul did to you. As soon as you were ready to hear it, Paul was there. Buckle up, motherfucker. I'm coming. He grabbed you out. And if people can have more tools to help them when they're sliding down to stop them hitting rock bottom, that means we all win. And that's exactly it. So what you just did with your mate.
I think one of the biggest things is like, Paul spoke about it before many a time. I can't remember whether he mentioned it on your podcast. I'm sure he did. But it's like we go to the gym, we train, we look at nutrition and everything like that, but we don't train our brain. No. We don't take care of the most important part of our body, and we don't try and figure it out. We just expect it to work and to do what it's programmed to do. But to try and reprogram it in a certain way and learn techniques as to how to do that and understand it is massively important. I think it's even more apparent now in the world of social media.
Fuck yes.
It drives me insane. All these people that are on things, and I look at Instagram and I can tell who's depressed. I can tell straight away who's depressed and who's not happy and who's in a relationship that they don't want to be in or that they're not happy in. And I honestly sit back and I just look at it and think, I know what you're doing. Because I've done it myself, and I know the triggers of it all. And it's funny when you sit down and speak to people, and there's trigger words and sayings that they say, and you just go,
"Yep,
you're lying.
Yep, oh,
you're absolutely lying."
Yeah.
And I just sometimes I'll try and help them, because this is the thing as well. Since I've been working with Paul. I keep finding it funny calling him Paul because he's called Kopi. He's Kopi to me.
I said that on the podcast. I didn't realize his name was Paul. That made me laugh.
So he said to me, what you'll find out is the more that we do this work, the more you'll want to help people. And I find myself doing it. But then there's times where I find myself just pulling back, going, be too much hard work, that.
Yeah.
Like,
because the thing is, but some people, as you said,
they don't want to be helped.
Because they don't know. Again, like I said, if someone coming to you when so after you played that game where you got Villa through to the final, and your mate turned around to you and went, "I think you're a bit depressed, mate. Like, I can help you with that." You'd have been like, "What the fuck are you on about, you dickhead?" Like, no, I'm not. No, I'm fine. I'll snap out of it. And that's the thing, especially people trying to convince themselves they're happy. And as you said, you can see it all over social media. Like, if you're really that happy on holiday with your missus, you're not posting photos all the time saying how madly in love you are, blah, blah, blah. You just enjoy the fucking holiday. Like, you're not trying to show the world how happy you are. You just are happy. You're just happy.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I'd say to people to take away from this is, and it's something that we work on a lot, and it's sort of the mirror effect. So when you get angry or you get upset, it's often a reflection of something. Or if someone gets angry with you and you bounce back on it, it's often a reflection of something you're suppressing.
Yes.
And it's so important that you realize that. And it is a sign of there's something not quite right. And it's something that I've learned along the way. So even now, there's times where I get frustrated and I get angry, and then I sit back and look at it and go, I do that. So I'm getting angry with someone for doing something, but it's because it reminds me of what I do and why I get frustrated and why it's something that I've suppressed and done. Every day is brilliant because you learn more about yourself and little things and little tricks of how to deal with them. But that's something that I think is vitally important for people, that they understand when they get angry with someone, it's a self-reflection.
100%. It's that self-awareness. And again, a comment is Paul said that, but or it might have been Andy Cope actually, about the fact of we walk around with ourselves 24/7, 365, but we don't actually know ourselves. Once you actually get to know yourself, it gives you the freedom to understand what's going on. And that sounds exactly what you're doing now. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But again, trying to articulate this to people is hard. And you've actually said it beautifully. But how you've articulated that, again, is beautiful. And this thing, I said this to Mikey and Matt, the gym owner. I knew that you had more to you. I like, don't you talk with Paul, because he's your mate, and obviously about the podcast. The stuff that you know now, I just wanted to get out of this podcast that you fucking know your shit. Like, you really, because Mikey's behind me now, nodding his head. The stuff you're saying, mate, is fucking spot on. And you articulate it in such a calm, assertive manner. And you genuinely give a fuck. Like,
I love it.
The thing.
I honestly, I find this fascinating. I find it fascinating to think how low I've been I'm not even joking. Within a 3-week period, I remember walking into my brother and my sister-in-law's house. And my sister-in-law, she likes this. She loves, like, whenever I talk to Paul, she's like, what have you learned? What have you talked about? And things like that. But she's a real, like, deep thinker about it as well. Whereas my brother quite naturally gets it, which some people do as well. Some people naturally work things out very well. And even after 3 weeks of working with Paul, like, she went, you look and sound brilliant. Like, you're back, and probably even better. And the biggest way I worked out that I was feeling better was the sleep. And do you ever, like, walk around with a podcast on or music on, but you never listen to it?
Yes, because you're not present. You're too busy in your own head.
Yeah. So I listen to things now. I listen to songs. I listen to podcasts. And my mind's not elsewhere. My mind's not racing, disappearing. And something that really pleased Paul as well was I've been learning Spanish for the last sort of 16 months, 15 months. My recall was terrible, really slow, because I'm sat in a lesson, having a lesson, but my mind's on everything else going on in my life, bouncing around it. Whereas now I sit in a Spanish lesson and I am present in that lesson. And my recall is like, boom, 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 so much quicker because my mind's clear. And I remember doing these lessons like a month on thinking, wow, I'm really getting good at Spanish here. And the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking, no, I'm present in the lessons. Whereas when I was having lessons beforehand, I'd sit there and think, fuck, I've got to do that after. I've got to do this after. Then she wants that. Then I've got to do this. I've got to sort that out. I've got to do this. And I'm in the lesson thinking like that. Whereas now I just go, like even in this thing now, like our podcast here, I'd be thinking what's going to happen later, what I've got to do tomorrow, what someone said to me last week. It's still playing on my mind. I don't. Everything's clear. Everything's so relaxed and calm. Is that I'm just at ease with myself.
Because
and
this
so
is life.
happy.
This is life.
Yeah.
You are now living life. Before you weren't. And again, I actually missed it out when we spoke about your career and how you spoke so negatively about it. It's probably because you weren't present and actually grateful in what you were doing. You were worrying about the next game, the next thing, the contract, whatever it was, the manager, fuck Correct. You. When actually, if you were present at every opportunity, you'd have completely thought differently about your career and everything like that. And I actually wrote down my notes. I didn't. Honestly, absolutely brilliant. That is like Mikey behind me is like, mate, this has been absolutely fantastic. Where can people find out more information about you? What is your Instagram handle?
It's Stephen Warnock 3, I think it is, on Instagram. But to be honest with you, I've pretty much come off it. Not enough.
Don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. If I didn't need it for a business, I wouldn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I use it for, but it was interesting. I sat down with one of my bosses at a big company not so long ago, and I asked him what he thought of social media and whether he thought I needed it. It's this cliche at the moment as well. Build a profile, build a brand and things like that. I couldn't be asked. So I said that to him. I said, listen, I can't be asked doing that. And he went, you don't have to. He went, do your job and it'll take care of itself. We don't need you to do stuff like that. And do you know what? It took a massive weight off my shoulders because they're things, again, that we tell ourselves a story. Well, I need to be big on social media. I need all these followers. So companies go, oh, he's well followed. Well, it's all right if you're well followed by people, but if you talk absolute bollocks, you're not going to get the work.
100%. With anything.
Come on and do with any job. Absolutely. It's not even, come on and do your...
It's not even in a job. It's in life. Who gives a fucking shit if you've got six-pack abs and you're absolutely stunning, but you can't hold a fucking conversation? What the fuck? Like, and you can post all these stories, but actually, if you go on a date with someone, you can't say it, mate. I'm so glad this is a fucking great point to finish on. I'm so glad you said that because when it comes to anything, personal training, being a good footballer, it doesn't matter how many followers you got. It doesn't matter who sponsors you. If you are not good at your job, it doesn't matter. Be good at your job and people will find you. Same with this podcast right now. Just come on this podcast. I'm trying to do the best job that I possibly fucking can. That's it. That's all I can do. Yeah. And that's what you should do with any opportunity. Be present and be the best version of you at any moment in time. That's the fucking whole thing of this podcast. Become the best version of you. And you've literally articulated how to do that. Be present in the moment and control what you can control. And that is you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Stephen, this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.